What's up, technology? Let's do Lua. Okay, guys. So far we have talked about Lua, what it is. We have downloaded Lua for Windows, and now I'd like to actually start working on the programming side of things. As you can see here behind me, this is our textbook, of which I only have a copy. I'm the only one that purchased one, and that's okay. I think that'll be fine. You guys I'll just tell you what we're doing. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So in a language, in a computer language, you have different functions. Functions perform an action. So what you could do is you could give a function a number, and then let's say that function multiplies it by 2. Or, obviously that's not very useful, but now that would, I guess, be the multiplication function, because you have to create functions for all the different tasks, whether you're multiplying a number or you're creating or it's a function that creates a whole node or whatever in the game. From complex to very simple, you have to have functions. And you reference those functions. They have names. Now, a lot of those functions perform actions in the background, which we cannot see. And as a programmer, you need to be able to see somewhat of what the computer is actually doing. So you're going to be writing code, and you want to see, did it actually work or not? And then at the same time, we want to be able to maybe write to a log, or so that we can have visibility to see what the program is doing. Also, it might be a part of the game where it actually puts out some text so that you can see the text. For instance, some text-based games function that way, where it's an adventure game and it says, hey, you're so and so, you're doing this, what do you want, A or B? That sort of game, which is text-based, may or may not get into that. I don't know. So how do we we've got this language and all these words and functions. Where do we start? So what I want to do, I want to start, and I've introduced this in the past, but I want to start with the print function. Okay, and as you can see, it's right behind me. So the print function does exactly what I've just been describing. It gives us visibility into the script that we've just written. Now, before we get into actually writing an entire script, let's just pull up the Lua command line. Now, on your computer, it may be different. I'm using a Windows machine, and I just hit the Windows icon in the lower left-hand corner, and I've gone ahead and pinned the So I've pinned it to start menu. So obviously, it's saying, "Do you want to unpin?" I don't want to do that. I don't want to undo the pin. So, but if you can't find it there, then just Lua command line. Something like that. I think, yeah, Lua command line. If you press enter, it just pulls up a Lua shell, if you will. And so that it's I won't get into what a shell is. So, like I was saying, to reference a function, you have to type out its name, and in this case, I type print. And the way the syntax. Okay, this is the word I'm going to be using a lot. What it means is the way in which you have to use something, the symbols or characters needed in order to actually use something. So you can't just write print and then something afterwards, because it needs a certain syntax. It needs symbols in order to know when it starts and when it ends and things like that. Okay, so don't get scared by that. It's I'll be using it more and more. If you don't quite understand, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out later as I keep using the word. You'll gain more and more context, and it'll make sense. So for now, what is the syntax of print? So let's write print. It is open parentheses and then we would type something inside of the print function. You can type all kinds of things, but we're just going to start with hello world. Now, you'll notice that I put double quotation marks on either side of a hello world. Let's see what happens. If we just typed, okay, I'm having trouble here, so I'm just going to keep it to hello. You see that it types nil. Nil. Now, why did it do that? We'll get into that. So we'll get into why it did that. But it did not type hello, which we wanted it to type. So if it's a text that we want it to print, if I could just, there we go. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay. We have to surround it in double quotation marks. So there you go. So we just printed the text, hello world. Now let's get into why it said nil. In order to print this next thing that we want to print, we need to create what's called a variable. You can think of it as a box, as a box that holds something. And we're going to take a Sharpie and we're going to write on the side of that box. We're going to give it some name, and then we're going to put it on a shelf, right? So if I asked you, hey, go get the box that's called A, then you would go to the shelf and you'd see A and you'd get it and you'd bring it back to me. I'd open it up and there'd be something in it, right? So we need to create that box, and that's simply done by, and I'm going to call the variable A, by typing A. And then we need to put something into the box, and that's done by typing the equal sign. This makes a lot of sense, but let me introduce to you another word that we're going to be using a lot, and that's called an operator. That equal sign is called an operator. It has a certain function, it does something. It's a part of the syntax that makes up the language. Okay, so A equals what? Let's just say 3. A equals 3, and the program doesn't do anything. This is a part of that stuff that goes on in the background, which you don't see as a programmer. So A equals C, now A equals 3. So now let's actually print A. And what do you know? Instead of nil, it actually prints a 3. So what happened last time was when we said print hello. I don't know if you can see this. Okay, so hopefully that's a little bit better. I've increased the font size. So we have, in this case, we typed hello, and it was expecting hello to contain something. We said, hey, go to the shelf, grab me the box that is labeled hello. And it went to the shelf, and the analogy starts to break down a little bit here, but it pulled a box called hello, and it looked inside the box, and there was actually nothing in the box. So that's what happened with the hello. So that is a brief summary of the print function and what you can do with it. So what I'm going to have you all do is practice view these on your own, and just start to try to hopefully grasp the concept of a language, what it's doing in the background, and how you can bring that to the foreground with the print function, where you can see, okay, what's going on. This is a very, very valuable tool in the area of debugging. Okay, so debugging, and that seems a little bit probably a strange word. It'll make more sense, and you will certainly fall in love with the print function. Thanks for watching, guys.